April 2025. With a single announcement, President Trump sets fire to the global economy. A 10% tariff blanket on all imports, and a punishing 125% strike against China. Allies are stunned. Rivals retaliate. Markets spiral. Is this bold economic warfare or a dangerous game of global Russian roulette? The catalyst? A series of aggressive trade actions culminating in sweeping tariffs imposed by the United States under the Trump administration. This protectionist policy, launched under the banner of economic liberation, sent shockwaves across the world, igniting trade wars, roiling markets, and threatening a new era of economic uncertainty. The world watched with a mixture of disbelief and trepidation, as the Trump administration, in a matter of weeks, upended decades of trade norms. This is the story of those tumultuous months, the decisions that led to a global trade war, and the profound consequences that continue to reverberate today. The year 2025 began with ominous signs. The Trump administration, long critical of global trade practices, signaled a new era of protectionism. On February 1st, a 10% tariff on Chinese imports went into effect, a move that sent shivers down the spines of global investors. The administration argued that these tariffs were necessary to protect American jobs and counter unfair trade practices. However, economists and business leaders warned of potential economic fallout. Their warnings went unheeded. On March 3rd, the administration doubled down, imposing an additional 10% tariff on Chinese imports, while also slapping a 25% tariff on goods from Mexico and Canada. The message was clear. The United States was prepared to upend the global trade order to secure its own interests. This set the stage for the dramatic events that would unfold in April, a month that would become known for the implementation of the most sweeping tariffs in modern history. April 2nd, 2025 will forever be etched in the annals of economic history as Liberation Day. On this day, President Trump, in a fiery speech that echoed his protectionist rhetoric, announced a series of tariffs that sent shockwaves through the global economy. A blanket 10% tariff on all imports was announced, a move unprecedented in modern trade history. However, the most dramatic measure was a 34% tariff, specifically targeting Chinese goods, bringing the total tariff on Chinese imports to a staggering 54%. This was not just a trade dispute, it was a declaration of economic war. The reaction was swift and brutal. Global markets tumbled, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average experiencing its worst single-day decline since the depths of the COVID-19 pandemic 3 years earlier. The International Monetary Fund issued an emergency statement, warning of the potential for a global recession. Retaliation and escalation was instantaneous, igniting a trade war. China, the target of Trump's most aggressive tariffs, responded with equal force. Within 24 hours of the Liberation Day announcement, Beijing announced retaliatory tariffs of 34% on a range of U.S. goods. The trade war had officially begun. The situation escalated rapidly. Trump, true to his word, threatened an additional 50% tariff on Chinese goods if Beijing refused to back down. China, in turn, raised tariffs on U.S. goods to 84%. By April 9th, the U.S. had responded by raising tariffs on Chinese goods to a staggering 125%. A full-blown trade war was now raging, with no end in sight. The impact was felt far beyond the borders of the U.S. and China. Canada and Mexico, initially hit with 25% tariffs in March, found themselves caught in the crossfire. Global supply chains, already strained by the COVID-19 pandemic, were thrown into disarray. The global fallout of these actions and events led to a world in turmoil. The economic fallout from the trade war was swift and severe. The IMF, in a revised forecast, predicted a global GDP contraction of 1.5% in 2025, the worst performance since the 2008 financial crisis. Inflation soared worldwide as the cost of imported goods skyrocketed. The U.S. economy, despite the Trump administration's claims, was hit particularly hard. Economists estimated that the tariffs would cost the average American household $3,800 per year. Industries that relied heavily on global supply chains, such as manufacturing and agriculture, faced massive disruptions. The trade war also had profound geopolitical implications. The already strained relationship between the U.S. and China deteriorated further, with both sides digging in their heels. The global trade order, painstakingly built over decades, was on the brink of collapse. As the world grapples with the economic and geopolitical fallout of Trump's trade war, one thing is clear: the global economy will never be the same. The long-term consequences of this protectionist turn are still unfolding, and the world watches with bated breath.